तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। In India, we get excited about birthdays, especially when it is for all kinds of celestial entities, Bhagavan, etc. And in this way, we have so many birthdays, Rama, Krishna, like this. We celebrate birthdays throughout the year. And then we have one day reserved for celebrating Vyasa Maharshi's birthday. Vyasa Maharshi was a great sage, even before Adi Shankara, and forms the earliest link to our tradition. And without tradition, we don't really have anything. In terms of this knowledge, in terms of everything, it is all just tradition. Without this tradition, we would be orphaned in terms of this knowledge. And so, therefore, Vyasa is the earliest link to the tradition. And he was, in a way, Mahamati. Mahamati means a great buddhi. And single-handedly, he was able to make the Vedas into 4. It was just one body of knowledge, but he divided everything into 4 because he knew that it would be lost, like so many other traditions which also have Vedanta in the world have become lost now due to proselytization, due to all kinds of difficulties and conversion and violence, decimation, colonization, so many things. And so this tradition would also go under. He knew that very well. He was very prescient about this. He had a foresight, and because of that, he was able to make the Vedas, divide the Vedas into 4 and give them to families to keep. So this way it was decentralized, and then it was a verbal oral tradition which was all held in the head of the carriers, and so there was absolutely no danger of it being taken away. In this way, the teaching tradition was completely protected, and it was protected because it was no longer under threat, and Bhagavan Vyasa was able to do this Herculean feat in addition to writing the Puranas, in addition to the Brahma Sutras, so many things. We can't even list all the things that he has done, because of which we have a rich and a teachable tradition that is handed down to us from all the gurus. So Vyasa's birthday has become the a Guru Day, just like we have Mother's Day, Father's Day. So this day is reserved for the glorification of teachers all over all over wherever they are, who are teaching this Vidya. And the whole thing, which is very beautiful, is that the tradition, when it is handed down, it is already ready-made. It's just like what we have, these days we have heat and eat. The food that comes already prepared and already ready, all you have to do is open and then eat This is all, what is that called? Instant noodles, instant food, instant things. Here it's already heated up. All we have to do is open the mouth and it is there. In that sense, it is a beautiful, beautiful day for the for all the sadhakas throughout the world. And then it is important because it's a day we are dedicating to knowledge, and it is believed that the power of this day is such that today, if we do shravanam, any kind of listening to the shastra, even a little bit, it the blessings of the whole day carries us forward, and it helps us to be rooted in the vidya. It helps to make a habit, and because of this habit we are able to be in this teaching, and that is why it's a very, very special day. And the Puja Swamiji, when talking about this, he would always say that it is important to be a sampradaya vit rather than a sampradaya krit. So Sampradaya Vid is the one who knows the Sampradaya. Sampradaya Krit is the one who starts a Sampradaya. We don't need any more starting. And in the tradition, we don't have anything new. Everything that we have has been, everything that we talk about has been analyzed at least 500 times, because the tradition is thousands and thousands of years old, and it's a rich tradition of hermeneutics and a healthy debate about all kinds of topics, and how to understand these topics. All this is already there. And so even when we teach or when we listen, when we think we have thought of something new, chances are, 100% chances are there that it is not new at all. In fact, this is what happened to Swami Paramarthananda ji. He was teaching in Chennai one time, long back, and he thought that he had discovered something very new, and he thought that he would tell everybody, and that this is something which is very new. And then he went back to his apartment after the talk, and then after that he thought, oh, let me look at my notes just in case. He was very excited. He thought he had discovered something new about the Shastra, and then he quickly went into the attic, took out his notes, and found out that Pujya Swamiji had already talked about it. It was already there. So this teaching is something that is ever new, ever newly discovered, but at the same time, it is old. That's why it's called Puranaha. Pura eva navascha. It is ancient and it is ever fresh, ever new, and so therefore we have this this tradition which has everything. There is no need to reinvent the wheel, and there is no need for new startups. In fact, all new startups without the Shastra, without the Guru, are upstarts. That's what it is. So from startup to upstart, that's what we do not want. So it is safe to be within this glorious and beautiful tradition, which hands down in its entirety everything that there is to know. In fact, the Atma or Atma knowledge is the only thing that can be handed over entirely. Nothing else can be taught fully, only the Atma. Think about it. For example, if somebody did not know what something sweet was, how will you explain this to them? How will you say that this is what the sweet taste is like? You can't. You just have to if they ask what is it like, you cannot explain. You just have to make them open the mouth and stuff one gulab jamun into it. That's all you have to do, and then hope that they understand what is sweet. You can't explain what is sweet. You can't explain entirely anything in this world, any branch of knowledge, any object, anything in this world cannot be explained, because each thing leads to another thing. Either it is something that cannot be explained at all, or if you explain it, you start going in an infinite regress. What is a tree? It is caused by a seed. What is a seed? It is caused by another tree. Like this, we get into an infinite regress, or we are just tongue tied. We cannot explain it at all. But even though the Shastra says, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha, meaning the mind and the speech have to give up. They give up in trying to uh, explain this knowledge, but we have to remember the mind and the speech, both of them, can explain this when they are in service of this knowledge as a pramana, when they are just unfolding the pramana, and the speech is useful and the mind is useful, not as an author or an agent of this knowledge, but as a servant of this knowledge. So the mind is a receptacle where the knowledge takes place, and words are again handed down by the Shastras along with the pedagogy of the Upanishads, how to deliver that. And so the words do not deliver directly, because they cannot, because every word brings with it its limitations. So how do they deliver the knowledge? By implication. This is what is called lakshyartha, not vachyartha. So lakshyartha means it is by implication, and so by implication, what happens is that the limitations associated with the words are spirited away by this knowledge. They are spirited away, and so what that word refers to after the limitations are taken away is you, and you happen to be self-evident consciousness, and so therefore you are able to do this very, very easily, assimilate this teaching. And so therefore this is how the knowledge is gained, and so that is why it is not possible to gain it without the teacher. We cannot gain it without the teacher. We have to have the teacher. It's not even a teacher-centric knowledge. We cannot say the teacher is an individual and everything is based upon this individual. It cannot be a teacher-centric knowledge. So what is it? It is a parampara-centric knowledge, where the teacher happens to be there in this time, in this place, for these set of students. That is what the teacher is. Because many times people ask the question, what if there is a bad egg in the parampara? What if there is one apple that is not fresh? And what happens then? Then the problem is not with the parampara. And like that, so many teachers may come, so many teachers may go, but the parampara continues because it is centered on itself. And so, even if there is one person who goes against the rules or what have you, it does not affect the parampara at all, because that person is outed and then ousted. That's what happens. Or the person does not have a chance to continue like this, and even if they continue like this, it will not affect the serious seekers. This is because of Prajapati's proclamation. Prajapati in the Chandogya Upanishad, in teaching Virojana and Indra in the 8th chapter, both of them had come to him for this knowledge, and Virojana is the lord of the Asuras. And taking one look at the Asuras, this king of the Asuras, Prajapati, doesn't feel like teaching at all. And Prajapati kind of misleads him, not misleads him, but just gives him partial knowledge and says, body is Atma. So you want to see Atma? Look into this vat of water. He asked them to bring some water. Look into this water. And then what do you see? Oh, I see this wonderful body. Oh, not bad. Even after years of living in the ashram, I look very handsome. I wish I had some gel to make my mustaches nice and stiff. And he like this. He talks and he thinks, and then he goes away thinking body is Atma. He doesn't get the other part of the knowledge, but Atma being everything cannot be just the body. This part, the most important part, he doesn't get. And then as even Indra goes away with him, and then of course the beauty of it is that Indra comes back because he's sattvic, he has a sattvic mind. So Indra definitely comes back, and then only the teaching can begin. But Virochana goes away, and when Virochana departs, seeing Virochana depart and even Indra going, Prajapati stands at the gate of the ashram and says, look at these people retreating, and look at these people eager to teach and eager to mislead themselves and others by teaching the wrong thing, that the body itself is the self. And he makes a proclamation, whoever in this manner, like them, not only them, but whoever teaches like this wrongly in this manner that kind of a kula, that kind of a teaching tradition will not persist and will not have a say in the world. And to this day, that is why this teaching tradition has continued unadulterated. Because of Prajapati's proclamation, we can be safe in understanding that all these teachings, so-called teachings, that are not coming from the parampara, that are just there, what is it called? Kapola Kalpitam, Pujya Swamiji would say. Kapola Kalpitam means it is not what is in that is thinking. Brain cells are not thinking. The skull itself is starting to think. So that is something which is very scary, when the skull itself, which is Jada, starts to think and spout this knowledge. And so this is how we gain the teaching. And the surrender, therefore, is to the parampara, not to the individual. The surrender is to the Shastra and the parampara. The individual becomes a conduit of the Shastra and an instrument of the parampara, and therefore the surrender is also to what the brings, and to the gurus. And we revere all the gurus, and for us the most important guru is Pujya Swamiji, because what he did and what he was able to achieve in his life is beyond imagination, beyond all imagination, beyond everything. And he was able to take the parampara further. What does it mean to take it further, when we have just talked about how it is complete and it is full and there is nothing else that needs to be done? Yes, true. At the same time, the teacher, a particular teacher, comes at a particular time and then shows the way to those people at that time who might have been struggling in certain ways. And so that time specific, space specific unfolding of the parampara, that is one thing we mean by taking it forward, and that is common to all teachers. But what is unique for Pujya Swamiji and other Mahatmas like him is that they were able to, their minds were so clear of all the ragas, dveshas, and everything, all the pratibandhas, that they were able to see things in the Upanishads. They were not even, they were mantra drishtaraha in their own rights. They were able to see things which other acharyas may have missed. And why did the other acharyas miss, like Adi Shankaracharya, etc.? Why did they as though miss? Because that was not the need of the time. That was not at all the need of the time. So, therefore, that was not highlighted. And so, Pujya Swamiji's primary contributions to this parampara are twofold. Actually, they are connected. And the first contribution is the extending and fleshing out the raga dvesha psychology. The whole raga dvesha psychology, that is the mainstay of the Bhapuja Swamiji, was very astute in seeing that this is something that is very important for our times, especially in this stage of Kali Yuga, and how, especially in the West, we become slave to all our likes and dislikes, strong prejudices, strong preferences. We just completely become enslaved by them. And so, therefore, his the first thing I would say, that when we look at Pujya Swamiji's teachings, it's all about reducing ragadveshas. Now, how to reduce, where to put these ragadveshas? Because it's one thing to suppress them, but where do I take them? And so, therefore, the part B of Pujya Swamiji's teaching is to take the ragadveshas to where it belongs. Where do the ragadveshas belong? Ishvara. Sarvesham buddhau ragadveshau vyavasthitau. This is what Bhagavan says in the Bhagavad Gita. In every buddhi, ragadvesha has already been arranged. Oh, that means I can have some more. Well, read the next line, which is called the fine print. What is the next line? Tayoho vashamna agachet. Please do not come under their spell. Tau hi asya paripanthinau. These are inimical to you. Please do not come under their spell. So if ragadveshas are already there, what is already also there is the ability to override them. The ability, the will to override them, the ability to override them is also given. And we have to make use of that. We have to make use of that, and the only way to override them is to surrender. Surrender means have a thriving relationship with Bhagavan. Even if you feel like you're not doing it properly, have a thriving relationship with any form, any name of Ishvara that you can relate to, because that is where you can say, Hara, Hara, take away. Please take away this, so that I need not be alienated from you. And not being alienated from Ishvara, being one with Ishvara, is the prasada of the Mahavakya. This cannot come. This absolutely cannot come until and unless that alienation and remoteness is bridged. Because we cannot settle accounts with every single it to where it needs to go. We settle account with the creator of the universe, and then in so doing we settle accounts with everybody else. So the Ishvarization of this whole universe is the way to overcome raga dveshas. And even though this has been said in the Ishavasya Upanishad and everywhere, Pujya Swamiji highlighted it as Adhyatma, as in a way that was that very up close and personal, in a way that absolutely made sense. And so that is the another very, very important contribution. And then again, related to that, the third part of Pujya Swamiji's contribution to the parampara is the understanding of the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind, the storehouse of the raga dveshas and all childhood experiences where we cannot process, we do not know how to do that, and that is again why we need the help of Ishvara, and we need help of all other sadhanas, yoga, therapy, whatever it is that is needed to develop self-confidence, self-love, etc. And that unconscious mind, which is in the form of the inner child, Pujya Swamiji highlighted the psychology aspect in Vedanta, which is an important discussion because it is a pratibandha for all kinds of other things, and overcoming this pratibandha is a very important thing because as long as there is an inner split, how can Advaita non-duality teaching work? It cannot work, and so on this auspicious day, we surrender to Pujya Swamiji. We surrender to him to be able to be thankful for this knowledge and to be able to walk on his footsteps and gain this teaching for ourselves, to make this our own. All of you have been studying for, and so this is the time to own it up. This is the time to assimilate it. So this is the day where we can do that. And on this auspicious day, I wish everybody lots of happiness, peace, prosperity in the life, and above all, may this teaching take hold in the mind, in the heart. Thank you very much. Om Tat Sat. Now I will go for puja, and so take care, everybody. Have a blessed day today, tomorrow. Yes, just like that, how we extend all the birthday also, you keep extending, and you it whenever possible. And the best way of celebration is to assimilate this knowledge. Each time you assimilate this knowledge, it's like cutting a cake and eating a big slice.